Hey Ottawa, this is your Monday market snapshot for the Ottawa real estate market for Monday, April 24th, 2023. My name is Annalee Rice and I'm a realtor with Royal LePage Performance Realty in Ottawa, Ontario. And every week I release these recordings with the stats for Ottawa's real estate market. If you want to know how many homes have sold, what the average selling prices are, days on market, all that info, follow along and subscribe for weekly updates. And this being the last week of April, I'll have good numbers next week for the monthly stats. Okay, first off, we've got the citywide stats. We see that the number of properties actively listed at the end of this week rose up by about almost 30. And this brings us back up to what we were at about 5 weeks ago. There was a little peak there, and then this is bringing us back to that same level. I do hope that it continues to climb so that buyers continue to have some more choice. We are having more and more sales, as you can see, 38 more sales this week than last week. And if the sales keep climbing, but the number of active listings doesn't climb at the same rate, we're going to get into a tighter market than we are here. This week's sales was 15% up from what we saw last week, especially in the townhomes. It was up 33% from last week's sales. This graph illustrates the active listings in green, conditionally sold properties in orange, and then red is the sold. We see that the green has climbed up back to where we were a few weeks ago. It's climbing, that's good, but not enough. And the sales wedge of red is getting wider. So there were 404 properties listed this last week, which is almost the same as last week. Still, it's a good number, but and the stats for the number of properties that were relists versus actual new listings were about exactly the same as last week. We had 83% were new to the market, so that was 334 properties, and 70 properties were relisted, so 17%. This graph also shows us visually how the sales this week jumped up after 3 weeks of a very stagnant level number of sales. Okay, so here we see that the ratio of properties that are selling with and without conditions is remaining still pretty solid. It's about 25% of properties sell with no conditions, so good solid 75% of properties are having some sort of a condition on the sale. Of the properties that sold this week, 27% were on the market for 1 week or less, which is a fair jump from what we saw last week. It was 16% last week. And 70% of the homes are selling within 30 days, and that number is climbing. So we're seeing the days on market coming down, and those ratios are going up. These are the areas that we're going to zoom into and see the stats for the more localized areas. In the central urban region, which is inside the Greenbelt, the numbers don't match too well with what the city numbers were. So we actually have fewer listings in the detached and townhomes, but we have a big jump in the number of condominiums that are listed this week. For sales wise, there were slightly increased sales across property types. Canada and Stittsville. Okay, so the last couple of weeks I was saying that they were very static, that there wasn't much going on, but this week it was a popular place to be buying. So we see that the active listings were down, especially in the detached, but that was mainly because the sales were up significantly. Sales were up over 100% for detached and townhomes, and condominium sales were a little bit slower. But because of these increased sales, that's why we're seeing the active listings down. And when we get to the charts at the end, you can see how many conditionally sold properties there are too. So there's a big jump in those as well. In Barrhaven and Riverside South, we see that the numbers match fairly well with the citywide stats. Not a whole lot to report here this week. Okay, and then we head east to Orleans. We see a slight increase in the number of detached and townhomes that are listed for sale and a slight decrease for condominiums. And the sales were pretty flat across the area. Okay, so getting into the more detailed stats with the days on market and such. I think this is the first time we've seen days on market this low for the detached homes across the whole city. It's, they're coming down a lot for the ones that are selling. Homes are definitely moving quicker if they're priced right and they show well. One thing I'll make sure to report next week is how the ratio of the list price to the sale price has changed over the last little while. It's definitely getting closer to people offering at or very close to the asking price, and there's more properties that are selling over asking price. The days on market for townhome sales continues to drop as well. This is definitely the first time that we've seen single digit numbers for the days on market. And that's what we're seeing in the central urban region. So there were 8 properties that sold, and the average days on market was 8 days. So interestingly enough, I did look into those. And even though it was such a quick sale time, 6 out of 8 of those properties did have a conditional period on the sale. So my advice to buyers, as we're starting to get into these quicker days on market, is get out quickly after a place is listed and go see it. And as much as you're capable of it, make your decisions quickly on whether or not you want to offer, because the good ones will sell quickly. And here are the numbers for the condominiums. Things especially seem to be picking up in Orleans. We see a lot more sales and a lot conditionally sold for next week as well. So um, I don't think that the market there can keep up with that many sales in a week. So it might put upward pressure on the prices. Okay, so if you find these updates informative, and some weeks I'll put in extra information, especially next week with the end of the month, please make sure you subscribe or follow along on my YouTube channel. It's your Ottawa Realtor. And I hope that if you have any questions, please reach out, leave comments, send me an email or a text, and let me know what you'd like to know about the Ottawa real estate market. I hope you have a great week.